Hey, Joe here. Let me tell you a story. I was recently working on a mix. As is my custom, I started with a static mix where I only let myself adjust levels and panning. By the way, if you're not beginning all your mixes this way, you should try it out. The resulting static mix was great. Sure, there were problems that needed to be addressed, but the overall vibe was big and punchy. It was as if the song was speaking to me. It was saying,
I need a big punchy low end. A big punchy low end. A big punchy low end.
So, not being one to argue with the voices in my head, I decided that's the direction I was gonna go. The next step for me was to add my go-to mix bus compression. Now, I say go-to in air quotes because I always want to be a little bit careful about having anything be a default or a go-to, because as soon as it becomes a go-to, there's a tendency to always go to it, even if it's not the right solution, as was the case with this mix. So I added what I normally add to my mix bus, a regular compressor and a multiband compressor. Switched them on and lame. So I switched off the multiband compressor and then I messed with some settings on the regular compressor. Lame. Then I removed the compressors entirely, and it sounded big and punchy again. Let me show you what I did. Okay, what you're about to hear is not my static mix, but actually my finished mix minus any compression on the mix bus. I thought that would make for a better example to show you the differences in the compression techniques I'm about to show you. So here is the non-compressed mix, so you can get a feel for the big punchy low end I was going for. So it's a heavily produced track, and a lot of the drums I even have are more drum loops and drum samples than a full drum kit. So a lot of the drum tone is baked in, which I'm completely fine with. I think it sounds really cool. One thing I like to do in songs like this where it's not a hip-hop song, right? It's more rock than hip-hop, but it's got some hip-hop elements, and it's got that big pounding hip-hop or even pop low end that I don't want to lose. But over the years, I've found if I push the drums a little hotter in the mix than maybe I'm comfortable with, they interact with the bus compression in a way that I really like, that really ties the mix together. So I tend to mix drums like this pretty hot in the mix, and then I rely on the compressor to kind of tame them down a little bit on the mix bus. And it works really well, except for when it kills your low end, which is the problem I ran into. Here are the two different compression techniques that I tried. The one on the top is just standard compression. The one on the bottom has one very important tweak or change to it. So first, let's turn on the top compressor. You can see it's a pretty slow attack time, 30 milliseconds, or 50 millisecond release, 2-to-1 ratio, nothing crazy, but listen to how much it's killing the low end. I'll start playback without the compressor, and then I'll click it on. If you've never heard pumping in a mix before, that's a pretty good example. The bigness of the low end, especially the kick drum, is triggering the compressor. Those low frequencies have a lot of energy that triggers the compressor to compress, and it's making everything sound squished and bouncy and just bad. And there's no punch in the low end. By the way, if you're not listening to this in HD, I recommend switching it up to 720 or 1080. You'll hear the audio a little bit clearer that way. Now let's switch over to the other compressor. Same exact settings except for one change. Ratio, threshold, attack, and release, all the same. One other difference, which you can probably already spot, but I'm going to go ahead and play it for you and let you hear it. So I'll start without compression, and then I'll turn the compression on. So in that example, what I heard, and you can rewind and listen a few times if you didn't quite hear it, but what I heard is there's all that goodness of the bus compression. It's hitting the snare drum, it's making that tighter, it's messing with the guitars and the vocals in a good way, but it's not completely pumping the mix like the previous version. The kick drums are kind of coming through. Here's the kick drum with the old compressor. Here's the kick drum with the new compressor. If you pay attention to the meter, you can see when the kick drum hits, there's not a lot of compression happening, but when the snare hits and the vocal comes in loud, that's triggering the compressor. So what did I do? Well, in Studio One and in many other DAWs and compressors, I don't know which ones, you'll have to do a little research yourself, but a lot of them have this feature. Something for years I didn't touch, didn't look at, didn't use, and it's ended up being one of my favorite kind of tricks to pull out of the hat when I'm in a pinch. And this is exactly one of those situations. So it's an internal sidechain filter. All that means is this is what the compressor is listening to. That's not what we're hearing as we listen to the output of this compressor, but it is what the compressor is listening to make its compression decisions. What does that mean? That we rolled off everything below 90 hertz from what the compressor is listening to. That means that big, massive low end is no longer factored into the compressor's decision of when to compress. Ergo, it's not going to compress every time the kick drum hits. It's going to let those kick drums just come through. It's not going to do that much compression. And then everything above 90 hertz that is loud and does cross the threshold will get compressed. It's sort of like multiband compression, but not really. It's like telling the compressor to ignore certain frequencies. And the end result, in my opinion, is something that has both the punch that I wanted from my static mix, but also the benefits of bus compression that you get without sacrificing all that punchy low end. So there you have it. By the way, that song, that's this month's song over at Dueling Mixes. This month marks our 5-year anniversary of Dueling Mixes, and we're celebrating by giving out free 30-day trials to Dueling Mixes. On top of that, if you become a member and you submit your mix in the forum of this month's song, you'll enter to win one of 5 different gift cards we're giving away for a total of $2,000. It's all a part of the celebration. If you're watching this video years in the future, of course you've missed out on the giveaways, but you can still join and you can still look in the back catalog and mix this song along with well over 50 other songs. They're all just waiting for you. Check it out over at duelingmixes.com. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, okay?